There is one domain where niacin's superiority over NR and NMN is not theoretical, not contested, and not a matter of interpreting ambiguous biomarker data, and that domain is lipid management. At therapeutic doses of 1 to 3 grams daily, niacin lowers LDL cholesterol by 10 to 25%, raises HDL cholesterol by 15 to 35%, and reduces triglycerides by 20 to 50%. These are substantial effects with decades of clinical documentation behind them. And here's the critical point. They're entirely independent of NAD+ synthesis and completely absent from NR and NMN supplementation. Those compounds simply do not touch lipid metabolism in any clinically meaningful way for the large population of people who are seeking both longevity optimization and cardiovascular protection simultaneously. This creates a meaningful divergence. NMN addresses one biological pathway. Niacin addresses two entirely different mechanisms through two entirely different biological mechanisms, NAD+ production and lipid regulation through separate pathways. If your health goals include managing a lipid profile alongside cellular energy and DNA repair support, niacin delivers dual benefits that no premium NAD+ alternative can replicate. The HDL elevation effect deserves particular attention because HDL-raising interventions are genuinely rare in pharmacology and nutrition. Statins primarily lower LDL, they don't substantially raise HDL. Niacin's ability to elevate HDL by 15 to 35% is one of the most robust effects in lipidology, and for individuals with characteristically low HDL and high triglycerides, a phenotype strongly associated with cardiovascular risk, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome, niacin may be one of the most targeted interventions available. This brings up the AMHI trial, which is often cited as evidence that niacin doesn't work for cardiovascular outcomes. But the AMHI interpretation requires careful reading. That trial tested niacin added to aggressive statin therapy in patients whose LDL was already well controlled. Under those conditions, adding niacin provided no incremental benefit, but that's a ceiling effect, not a verdict on niacin monotherapy. The question was never, does niacin help people whose cardiovascular risk is already aggressively managed by other drugs? The question relevant to most people is whether niacin provides cardiovascular benefit when it's the primary or sole intervention, and for appropriate candidates, statins-intolerant patients, those with unfavorable lipid phenotypes. The answer remains credibly yes. The practical warning here is about candidate selection. Not everyone needs niacin's lipid effects. People with optimal baseline lipid profiles may derive minimal additional benefit from the cardiovascular pathway specifically. But for the substantial portion of adults with low HDL, elevated triglycerides, or who cannot tolerate statins, niacin's cardiovascular profile represents real clinical value that cannot be purchased at any price from NMN vendors. Quarterly lipid panel monitoring, tracking LDL, HDL, triglycerides, and ApoB transforms niacin from a faith-based supplement into a measurable intervention with objective response data. That's exactly the kind of evidence-based approach the longevity community claims to embrace.